Hello, and welcome to the November 2016 Living Atlas Community Webinar, Expanded Imagery Offerings from DigitalGlobe and New Vector Tile Basemaps. I'm Tamara Grant, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. Before we get started with our first presentation, there are a few general housekeeping items we need to discuss. First, this webinar is being recorded, and it should be available by the beginning of next week, if not before. You will be sent an email that includes a link to the recorded webinar. It can also be found on the landing page of the Living Atlas website at livingatlas.arcgis.com and on our new Facebook page. The Facebook page is located at www.facebook.com/livingatlas. This page gives us the opportunity to connect with our users and demonstrate how the Living Atlas can be used to enhance your work. Please feel free to visit and like the page. While the presentations are happening, please feel free to send us your questions through the questions panel. After each presentation is finished, we will dedicate some time to answering your questions. Finally, we will wrap up the webinar with some quick announcements. Also, I'd like to note that I've shared a handout with everyone that includes links that are relevant to our presentation today. So please be sure and grab that handout. We do have some great presentations lined up for you today, but before we get started with our first topic, I'd like to take a minute to introduce our speakers. Deane Kensok has been with Esri since 1990 and is currently the Program Manager for ArcGIS Online and lead for the Content Development team. For the past 20 years, Deane has worked on a variety of internet mapping and data publishing products and projects, leading to his current work with ArcGIS Online. Vicki Bassett is a Product Manager at DigitalGlobe, managing the Basemap product line. Prior to her role in project management, Vicki was a lead solutions engineer and a senior collection strategist. She joined DigitalGlobe 6 years ago from a laser optics company in Boulder, where she managed the product engineering team. And Andrew Green has been a product manager for the ArcGIS Online Basemaps for the past 4 years. He has over 20 years of cartographic experience prior to joining Esri. Creating and updating the basemaps is a collaboration of the community maps, data, authoring, QA, release, and development teams. With that, we'll go ahead and get started with our first presenter. Deane, please feel free to take it away.
Great, thanks Tamara. For the next 30 minutes or so, what we're going to be covering are these topics. So first I'm going to provide an overview of our World Imagery map and describe how it can be used. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Esri partnership that we've recently set up with DigitalGlobe. Third, I'm going to hand it over to Vicki, and she's going to talk about some of the DigitalGlobe Basemap offerings. And then I'll come back and talk about the current status of our deployment of DigitalGlobe imagery and the roadmap for the next several months. And then, as Tamara mentioned, we should have some time for questions and answers. So let's start by just a quick overview of what the World Imagery Map is. Many of you are active users of this map, I'm sure. The World Imagery Map is a multi-scale imagery base map of the world that goes down to 1 meter or better resolution worldwide. It's pre-cached from very small scales of 1 to 500 million down to very large scales of around 1 to 280. We have imagery at many of these different scale levels. Most of the world is available at level 17, which is about 1 meter resolution. The coverage map you see in the upper right shows the areas that are covered at this resolution. But we also have broad coverage of even more detailed sub-meter resolution imagery for selected areas, such as the United States, Western Europe, and other locations where we have community maps content. The World Imagery Map is assembled from a variety of best available sources at different scale levels. The imagery includes content from both commercial sources like DigitalGlobe, as well as community sources from various types of government organizations. The imagery is optimized to show the most recent imagery of acceptable quality for any given location. Our goal with the World Imagery Map is to provide high-resolution imagery that's within 3 to 5 years of currency, whenever possible. And the World Imagery Map includes a metadata layer that you can use to find out information about the imagery for any given location, including the acquisition date, the resolution, accuracy, and data source. So how is the World Imagery Map being used? World Imagery has historically been one of our most popular maps. In October 2016 alone, there were about 5 billion image tile requests to the imagery map. And you can see in the upper right a heat map that shows the activity of where usage happened in October. You can see there's a high concentration of activity in North America and Europe, but also quite a bit of activity spread around Asia, Australia, South America, and parts of Africa. It's a pretty widely used map, not just in urban locations, but in various locations around the world. The World Imagery Map is designed to be used as a background reference map that you can use for a background layer for many types of information that you might overlay. And it can also be used for data collection. There are a variety of applications that you can use to perform data collection using our imagery map, including the ArcGIS.com map viewer if you're using ArcGIS Online, ArcGIS desktop applications such as ArcMap and ArcGIS Pro, and also mobile applications like Collector for ArcGIS can take advantage of the imagery to collect features that you can visualize in the imagery. The World Imagery Map may be used both online and offline, depending on the use case that you're looking to support. So for example, if you're looking to do data collection in the field and using an application like Collector for ArcGIS, you're allowed and enabled to export small amounts of the imagery base map for offline use within Collector applications. There are separate map services that have been configured for this purpose that have export enabled, and those are available to access through ArcGIS Online. And these require an ArcGIS Online subscription to use them. Users that would like to have a full copy of the imagery map and other base maps to store locally on their private network environment or in a cloud network environment can do so through a product called Data Appliance for ArcGIS. And the Data Appliance also supports the export of imagery for offline use. Earlier this year at the Esri User Conference, Esri announced a multi-year partnership with DigitalGlobe. The primary goal of this partnership is to enhance the quality and currency of the World Imagery Map with DigitalGlobe satellite imagery. This multi-year agreement will provide for multiple updates to the basemap imagery over time, not just a single update of the imagery from DigitalGlobe, but imagery updates this year and the following few years. And the intent of this imagery is that it will provide a solid foundation of satellite imagery that can be used and enhanced with community contributions. For example, there are many national, state, and local government organizations who are contributing aerial imagery that can be used in our World Imagery Map. And where those are available, we might use those instead of the satellite imagery from DigitalGlobe. Through this partnership with DigitalGlobe, Esri will have access to 2 products, which Vicki will talk about here in a minute. One is Basemap plus Vivid. This is a global imagery mosaic at 1 meter resolution worldwide with 50 centimeter resolution imagery in the United States, Western Europe, and Australia. In addition to that, we've also licensed several hundred cities from another product called Basemap plus Metro. Basemap plus Metro provides even more recent imagery at 30 or 50 centimeter resolution for metropolitan areas around the world. And Esri has licensed 750 of those to start. Aside from this, Esri is also working with DigitalGlobe to provide access to its full archive of imagery for ArcGIS users that would like to perform other types of visualization and analysis. And we'll be separately announcing different product offerings that will become available that will let you do even more to exploit the imagery archive available from DigitalGlobe. So with that, I would like to pass it over to Vicki, who can tell us a little bit more about the DigitalGlobe basemap offerings that will be used in the World Imagery Map.
Thank you, Deane. Again, I'm Vicki Bassett. I'm a product manager at DigitalGlobe on the Basemap product line. DigitalGlobe is the world's trusted provider of high-resolution Earth imagery, data, and analytics. We operate 4 high-resolution Earth imaging satellites that can see anywhere on the globe every day. At Nadir, our satellites collect imagery between 30 centimeter and 50 centimeter spatial resolution and have a pointing accuracy better than 4 meters. The constellation collects nearly 3 million square kilometers of new imagery each day, adding to our extensive 15-year image library. Basemap is DigitalGlobe's solution to making imagery easy, with the best of our image library accessible online anywhere in the world. Over 1 million square kilometers of the daily collections are processed and automatically loaded to the DigitalGlobe cloud, making them available to Basemap customers within days. This time series of images from 2000 up through today supports a variety of use cases, from change detection to site monitoring. For users looking for a single image layer for analytics or as a base map to add context to your geospatial information, our Basemap plus Metro and Basemap plus Vivid products offer city and country scale image mosaics with scheduled updates. The content available in Basemap includes over 1.5 billion square kilometers of image strips and mosaics across the globe, accessible with our MyDG user interface, OGC services, or our Image Connect plugin for Esri's ArcGIS software. Since the Basemap plus Vivid and Basemap plus Metro mosaics are what Esri is using to improve the World Imagery map, I'll now provide a bit more detail on those 2 products. Basemap plus Vivid is our high-resolution global image mosaic, which means we've color balanced, aligned, and merged hundreds of thousands of our satellite images, leveraging the full extent of our archive to create a consistent image layer over the global landmass. The mosaic is produced at 50 centimeter resolution globally and to a positional accuracy of better than 10 meters CE90, or circular error with 90% confidence. In the World Imagery map, as Deane mentioned, Esri is integrating the Basemap plus Vivid mosaic at the full 50 centimeter resolution over the United States, Western Europe, and Australia, but at a lower 1 meter resolution everywhere else. Updates to the Vivid mosaic are ongoing to improve the coverage, aesthetics, and currency. We have more than 220 countries covering over 100 million square kilometers worldwide, produced and on the shelf today. Those areas are shown here in green. Expansion into Canada, Alaska, Iceland, and Svalbard, shown here in yellow, is underway now, with those areas planned for completion early next year. Updates to the mosaic to improve both currency and aesthetics has already begun, with 5 million square kilometers refreshed this year in the Middle East. Over half of the landmass is planned for refresh in 2017, shown here in orange, with the remaining areas, including the initial build of northern Canada and Russia, planned in 2018. Updates to incorporate new imagery are pretty self-explanatory, but you may be wondering about the aesthetic improvements. So I've included a couple of examples from the updates in the Middle East. In each of the cases, the initial 2014 mosaic is shown on the left, with the updated 2016 mosaic shown on the right. So I have 4 examples here. The first pair of images show improved image alignment and seamline blending in the Shadigan Wildlife Refuge in Iran. On the bottom, the second pair of images are an example of improved image radiometry and seamline blending outside Al-Fallujah, Iraq. I have a couple more examples here. The third set of images, the top pair on this slide, show, again, improved radiometry and some contrast improvements in this area north of Habaniya Lake in Iraq. And then lastly, a little bit different than aesthetics, but certainly improving the overall coverage and aesthetics. The last set of images in this mountainous region east of Batumi, Georgia, you can see how the update this year significantly reduced the cloud cover, so you can see more of the ground. The roadmap for the Basemap Plus Vivid product reflects the vision to continually improve the global mosaic. We're on track to complete the initial global skin by early next year and have already begun updating areas to improve aesthetics and incorporate new imagery, as you've seen. We will then look to improve completeness of coverage, such as minimizing ground features obstructed by clouds and increasing the overall accuracy so the imagery lines up better with your vectors. Lastly, our vision for the product is to have more frequent updates so the mosaic is both beautiful and as current as possible. For users working in city spaces rather than at a country scale, Basemap Plus Metro is our mosaic coverage of thousands of major metropolitan areas across the globe. Metro mosaics are produced at 30 centimeter or 50 centimeter resolution, depending on the resolution of the imagery collected, with nearly 500 metro areas having 30 centimeter mosaic coverage today. Mosaics are produced to a positional accuracy of better than 10 meters EE90, with some areas guaranteed better than 4 meters. In the World Imagery map, Esri is integrating the 750 most viewed metro areas at the full 30 centimeter or 50 centimeter resolution. Metro areas are prioritized for collection annually. Production of the metro mosaics is ongoing to maintain the image currency and expand overall coverage. Over 2,500 areas around the globe, shown here in yellow, have been identified for the product. More than 2,000 metro areas, covering over 1 million square kilometers, are produced and on the shelf today. Over 1,800 of those areas have imagery coverage from the past year. And in 2017, we will be expanding coverage to include all 2,500 areas, with 90% of those areas refreshed annually, including those areas Esri is including in the World Imagery map. Our roadmap for the Basemap Plus Metro product reflects the vision to extend our commitments and differentiation. As we continue to build out the initial AOI coverage, we're updating areas to maintain currency. To better meet the needs of our users, we're looking at areas for committed coverage at 30 centimeter resolution and expanding our commitment for annual refresh. As with Plus Vivid, we plan to increase the overall accuracy of the Plus Metro mosaics, with the vision for the Metro product to improve the mosaic currency with more frequent updates, specifically in areas with high rate of growth and change. DigitalGlobe is excited about our Basemap products and the opportunity to partner with Esri to update and improve the World Imagery map with the Basemap mosaics. Satellite imagery provides an incredible, unbiased picture of what's on the ground, and Esri's World Imagery ensures users have access to a foundation for their geospatial information. But we're not stopping there. Given the numerous use cases and requirements beyond the World Imagery, DigitalGlobe and Esri are working to unlock new ways for users to gain access to DigitalGlobe's imagery, data, and analytic capabilities. Thanks, that's it for me. With that, I'll pass the controls over to Deane for details on the World Imagery updates.
Great, thank you very much, Vicki. So let's talk a little bit about the status of the integration of what Vicki described into the World Imagery map. So the initial updates of the Basemap Plus Vivid imagery content into our World Imagery map began in Q3 of this year, in September of this year, and will continue through Q2 of next year. Basemap Plus Vivid updates have already been completed for about 25 million square kilometers of the world that you can see in yellow in the map in the lower left. And again, the intent of these is to improve the image quality or currency of the map. On the lower right, you can see an example of a story map that was made available through one of our blog posts. I'll just highlight a couple examples of where updates have been made. So here's an example where you can see on the left what we had previously in our imagery map, where there were some pretty awkward seams that we had between different image scenes. With Basemap plus Vivid, they've done a nice job of blending those out so you get a much more seamless user experience for accessing the content. Here's an example where the prior satellite imagery that we had for an area in India was heavily cloud covered. And when we deployed the Basemap plus Vivid imagery, you see much less cloud content in the resulting high-resolution imagery. A similar example of that is here in Japan, where you can see the cloudy imagery that we had prior to the update and the much less cloudy imagery that we have after the deployment of Basemap plus Vivid. One of the prime purposes of the update is to enhance the currency of the imagery. Here's some imagery in France that was updated recently with our latest update to the World Imagery map. So on the left you can see the imagery we had prior, which was from 2011, that showed a stadium in France that was under construction. On the right you see the current imagery that we have that shows the same area from 2014 that's fully developed. And as I mentioned, you can click on the imagery to get information about the imagery in this location. So in this case, the imagery was acquired on June 22nd of 2014. It's 50 centimeter resolution. You can see its positional accuracy and even the data source that was used to capture the image. And one last example, this is showing an area in northern Scotland that prior to our update had older black and white imagery that we acquired previously. And with the update, we now have the natural color imagery from 2014 for this area. So those are just a few of the examples of the types of changes that we'd like to make to our imagery map to improve the currency of the imagery, and in many cases where we're updating from satellite imagery, also improving the quality. So let's talk about the roadmap for the next several months. Additional updates are being prepared now for release in Q4. We've already done 3 updates of our World Imagery map in the last 6 weeks to deploy the imagery that I showed before in yellow. Over the next 2 months, we intend to do 2 or 3 more updates to our World Imagery map to update several countries around the world that you can see here in orange on the left side. In addition to that, we'll be deploying our initial updates of the Basemap plus Metro imagery that Vicki described for approximately 250 metro areas around the world. You can see an example of that metro imagery in the lower right for Melbourne, Australia. Looking beyond 2016, in Q1 and Q2 of 2017, we intend to complete the remaining communities of imagery for Basemap plus Vivid. That will include updates for the United States, Canada. Vicki mentioned that they're in the process of wrapping up their deployment of Basemap plus Vivid imagery for Canada. We'll be deploying that early next year. Western South America, Central Africa, and parts of Western Russia will be deployed to complete the coverage of Basemap plus Vivid in the first half of 2017. And then in addition to that, we'll be completing the deployment of the remaining Basemap plus Metro areas for about 500 more metro areas around the world. We're doing the update of the United States in Q1 of next year in large part because in addition to these updates from DigitalGlobe, we're also processing many other updates that we have from community sources for the United States. So those will be blended into a single large update for the United States in Q1 of next year. Beyond the first half of next year, we'll begin to go into the update process of deploying Basemap plus Vivid and Metro updates throughout Q3 and Q4 and beyond. We anticipate that there will be quarterly updates for parts of the world with the Basemap plus Vivid imagery. For example, we intend to refresh Europe with both updated imagery and some of the aesthetic improvements that Vicki was describing. We'll also be updating Australia with updated imagery and also going down to 50 centimeter resolution. And then we intend to do annual updates for most of the 750 plus metro areas that we've acquired from DigitalGlobe. This same imagery that we deploy in the first half of 2017 will also be available for customers who'd like to have local copies on their local infrastructure through the data appliance. So in the latter half of 2017, we will be deploying our next update to the data appliance beyond the one we've just released that will be available, including all of this digital globe imagery. So with that, we have a few minutes and we will take a few questions.
Yep, and we did have a few come through. The first question was, what is the best way to stay current on updates being made to the imagery map? And what changes are planned next?
Good question. So probably the best way to stay current on this is to follow the ArcGIS blog. With every update that we do to World Imagery and with our other basemap content, we will release a blog post that describes the update, and that blog post will typically also describe what's planned in the next release. So for each of the 3 releases we've already done, we've published blog posts on that and shown examples of what's changed. So I'd encourage you to check that out, look at the ArcGIS Online blog, and you should be seeing announcements every 2 or 3 weeks for the next several months.
Okay, great. We also link to the blog from our Living Atlas webpage, and we share all the blog posts related to the Living Atlas on the new Living Atlas Facebook page. So you can also check there. The next question was, does the World Imagery map on ArcGIS Online use any credits? Essentially, does it cost me anything?
No, it does not. So the World Imagery map, along with our other base maps, is provided at no cost for use in all ArcGIS applications. So it does not consume any credits. It does not even require an ArcGIS Online subscription. If you do want to do things like download content for offline use, as I described, then you can do that. That also does not consume any credits, but it does require an ArcGIS Online subscription to take those maps offline.
Okay, great. Thank you. Another question was, you showed a general map of the metro areas that will be published by Esri. Can you please share a live public map of those areas?
Sure, yes. Vicki showed a map that showed some of the areas in yellow that were going to be available through Basemap plus Metro, and then the areas in pink that are the 750 metro areas that Esri is planning to integrate. And yes, we can share a live map of that, of those areas. What we'll do is publish that through ArcGIS Online, and then in the follow-up materials that Tamara shares, we'll include a link to that coverage map. And one thing I'd mention, Vicki mentioned that those areas were the most used of the base map. So what we did to select those 750 metro areas was analyze the usage of our World Imagery map over a several-month period to see which of those metro areas had the most demand. And then we ordered those, excluding just a few of the metro areas for which we already have high-resolution aerial imagery that's being actively maintained. So it will provide a very large percentage of the requests for the metro areas that are available from DigitalGlobe.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's about all the time we have for questions. We want to make sure Andy has enough time for his presentation, and we can always ask additional questions at the end if there's time. So I'm going to go ahead and switch the presenter to Andy.
All set.
Okay, thanks Tamara. So this part of the webinar is going to talk about the new vector tile base maps. And we'll start out with a question of what are the vector tile base maps? Okay, there are new basemap format that are cached and delivered as vector tiles. They're in a PBF format and they're rendered client side. They're based on a set of resource files that are delivered with the vector tiles. The source of our vector tile basemaps is exactly the same as our raster basemaps. It's from 3 main sources: commercial data, primarily here, community data contributions, and open source data such as OpenStreetMap. That data goes into our central database, and with the vector base maps, we're using development version of ArcGIS Pro tools to export a single tile set. That tile set's multi-scale, and the benefit of that is that it's only gigabytes in size. It's a very portable product compared to our raster tiles which are terabytes in size. So that single tile set is served online, and separate resource files for each of our map styles are available. This resource file contains styles, sprites or image files such as the patterns, road shields, symbols, town symbols, things like that, as well as fonts and an info file. Currently, we have 9 basemap styles that are served from this single tile set. Some of these styles match our raster basemaps, such as our street map and topographic map, as well as our light and dark gray canvas map and terrain with labels. And then others in this set of 9 are brand new to our basemaps. That's the navigation map, the street map at night, and a dedicated imagery hybrid map. So how are the Esri vector basemaps published? We publish them as tile layers that you can add to an existing map, either as a base map or as an overlay layer. We also create web maps. That URL for the web map will remain constant whether we're in beta or in production, and they're updated with the latest tile layer. You can use that base map as is, or you can add your own layers and data through ArcGIS Online. We've prepackaged some of the web maps, and they contain multiple tile layers, such as Imagery Hybrid, which has the imagery raster service, in addition to the hybrid vector layers. Our canvas maps in the vector format are the same structure as our raster map. They have a base layer and then a reference layer, which produce what we call our map sandwich, where your operational layer can be served up in between the base and reference layer. And then we also provide a multi-directional hillshade underneath our streets with relief, our topo map, and our terrain with labels map. So what are some of the benefits of using the Esri vector basemaps? One of the main ones that we have is customization by you, the user. The vector maps can be customized, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail on a future slide. With the vector basemaps, and since we are serving a single tile set, we can update the data more frequently and have a shorter release cycle. We're including the community contributed data in all the styles. So as I showed before, the community data goes into our vector basemaps, into that single tile set, and then it gets exposed through the styles, whether that's topo, street, canvas. It's all from that same data source. And also for vector basemaps, it's a better display on high-res devices. Just a quick timeline of our vector basemap program. We initially showed it at user conference in 2015, and in November of that year we released a beta 1 set of vector tiles. Our beta 2 release went out in May of 2016. It was a brand new tile set, and it also had a new URL, and it was a beta 2. It contained new data features that weren't included in beta 1, and we also added a few new styles. We updated the data, and we provided new communities into our contributors as well. So throughout 2016, we've been in what we've been calling our beta 2X releases. We've been updating our data and providing releases at shorter intervals. We've been making style improvements and updating the tile layers, which subsequently would update the web maps. And where we are today is at that pointer towards the end of our beta program. And what that means is we're planning for a production vector release in December of this year, next month. We'll come out of beta. It will have a new layer URL The web maps will automatically update to that new tile layer, so you won't need to change any web maps that you're using. But if you are using tile layers, you will need to update to the new production URL. And the other change with the December online update is that vector basemaps will be available through the online basemap gallery. So where can you find the vector basemaps today? As I've said, they're in beta. We have a group in ArcGIS Online. It's called Vector Basemaps Beta Group. Through this group page, you can access web maps or tile layers. You can review the online items and descriptions to see what the different maps contain. And once we exit beta, this same group page will be promoted as the production group. We'll remove the beta tag, but the URL to this beta group, current beta group, will remain the same. So if you want to bookmark it today, when we're out of beta, all the same content will be there for you to access in online in December. Today in beta, you can also search the Living Atlas in ArcGIS Online. The syntax for searching in these environments is owner:/Esri_vector. And information like this, including the URLs to this page and to how to search in online, is available in the handout that Tamara put in the webinar. So where can you find the Esri vector basemaps in the future? When we exit beta in December of this year with the new production URL, it'll be also in conjunction with the online update where you'll be able to find the vector basemaps in the online basemap gallery. We're making JavaScript API improvements that'll provide for better map display. And additionally, more Esri clients will be able to utilize the vector tile format. Currently, Pro 1.3 can consume the vector tiles, and in the future, apps like Survey 123, Collector, Workforce, Explorer for ArcGIS will be able to. So some of the recent enhancements that we've done to our vector basemap while we're in the beta period, we've repaired some clipped labels. Some of you may have noticed early on when we released back in May that we did have some labels that were getting clipped. That has been improved in our current version. We've also improved right-to-left language displays such as Arabic fonts. And there are additional improvements that are in development that you'll see over the course of the next few months and even as we exit the beta period. We continue to add additional contributor data and commercial content from our data vendor here. This better mapping content will be updated on a more frequent cycle. And we'll be adding more data features into the tile layers. This includes community roads and community administrative boundaries. We're working to improve the map display and provide additional language options. Also options for disputed features. Some of you have requests for showing different labels for your different country point of views, and we're looking to add that into our core tile set. Some of the other features we're adding are more from the topographic standpoint in terms of landform labels, spot elevation points, contours, as well as other features in the future. The one point that I talked about, the map display in additional languages, we will be adding additional languages into the tiles. They'll be for select feature classes, such as country names, major cities, water bodies, things like that. And the visibility will be controlled by the map style. Some of the options that will be available will be English language globally, local language displayed by country, as well as overall map display in a specific language. The initial release of this additional languages, we're looking at about 7 different languages. Adoption of the Esri vector basemaps across the platform. Much of what I've talked about has been directly related to the web, ArcGIS Online. We are currently in beta, and our plan is to exit beta in December of this year. It'll have the new URL. You'll be able to access it through the basemap gallery, as well as using the vector basemaps in Scene Viewer. For Portal, the plans are for 2017 for version 10.5.1 to consume the vector basemaps. For desktop, currently Pro 1.3 can consume the vector basemap tiles, and in the future, in 2017, we'll have access through the basemap gallery through Pro. And also mobile. Mobile plans for 2017 is that apps designed with the Quartz Runtime SDK will be able to support the consumption of the vector tiles. So one of the benefits that we talked about early on was the customization of the styles. So since it's served from a single tile set, you can choose any one of the 9 multiple styles that we have as your starting point. You may want to start with Canvas Map. That has some of the lighter set of features that are in the map, just currently by design. It's a canvas map. You can put more of your own content on it without conflicting with the map content. Or if you want a really detailed map, you can start with our street map or topo map. The choice really is yours. You can save a copy of our tile layer into your own ArcGIS Online account. We have a reference document on ArcGIS Online. The link will be in the handout that Tamara provided in the webinar. It details the layer names, min-max zoom levels of when features can be turned on and off, the selection of fonts that you can change your map display, as well as some other tips and tricks for customizing the maps. We also have several options to style and customize the maps. There are a couple styling apps that are in beta as well. You can also directly edit the style file, which is JSON editing, or you can edit with the JavaScript API and make customizations through that. Esri ourselves has done several creative styles. They're available on a sample vector tile layer group page. We have a modern antique map, a newspaper map, mid-century map, black and white map, and also this orange and black map that we call Mappy Halloween that was released in conjunction with a graveyard finder story map for the recent holiday. There's also a handful more on this sample tile layer group. I encourage you to check it out, as well as try it yourselves as to how you can customize our vector tile maps. This page has a number of links to the styling editors. This will also be included in the handout, so you don't need to scribble anything down right now. But just gives you an idea that we have a couple style editors, whether that's more WYSIWYG type of editor or a JSON editor, as well as the JavaScript capabilities, and just a pure JSON editor like Adobe Brackets. There's multiple ways that you're able to customize our vector basemaps. So in summary, our new vector basemap format is available as tile layers and as web maps. All styles reference a single tile set, which allows us for more frequent data refreshes. The vector format allows user customization of the map styles. And while we are currently in beta, we're targeting a production release in early December of 2016. And with our December online update, there'll be a change to the web viewer where you will be able to access the vector basemaps through the basemap gallery. As Deane mentioned for the imagery, one of the best ways to keep status of our vector basemap program is through the blogs, blogs.esri.com/arcgis. And if you search on the tag vector basemap, that'll pull up all the current blogs related to the vector basemap program. And as Tamara talked about, once we have a blog posted, it will be shared in a number of other sites, including the new Facebook page for the Living Atlas. That brings me to the end of my presentation and open it up for questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andy. We did have a few questions come through during your presentation. The first one, and we've actually had a couple people ask about this, will Esri vector basemaps be available for on-premise deployment?
So Tam, yes, they will be available. Our plan is to make them available in our data appliance in our 2017 release of that product.
Okay, great. And here's another question, much like the question Deane answered. Does it cost anything to use the vector tile basemap?
No, it does not. They are freely available through ArcGIS Online.
Okay, and just one last quick question. Is there a noticeable difference in the performance between the vector tiles and the original cached maps?
We have noticed differences, improvements in the vector basemaps. In terms of metrics, I don't have them currently at this time.
Okay, great, thank you. Let me go ahead and show my screen and we'll wrap up the webinar. First of all, I want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar and thank our presenters for their wonderful presentations today. If you do have any additional questions, please feel free to contact our presenters, and you can see their contact information on this slide. If you have any general feedback for the webinar, please feel free to contact me at tgrant@esri.com. And I'd also like to let everyone know that when the webinar is finished, you will be prompted to complete a survey. Please take a minute or two to complete the survey so we can continue to improve our webinars. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Living Atlas. And again, go ahead and check out our new Facebook page at www.facebook.com/livingatlas. And they mentioned a lot of blog posts today to stay up to date with the latest announcements, and all of those posts will be on our Twitter and Facebook pages. So you can stay up to date by following either of those. And as I mentioned earlier, the link to the recording will be sent in a follow-up email. And again, you can access it from Twitter, Facebook, or our Living Atlas website. And be sure to keep a lookout for more webinars in the future.